Thank you and good morning. It's wonderful to see everyone here. It's a little humid. We are in a temperate rainforest up here in Asheville. And so there are some mornings after a heavy rainfall where it does feel like you are in a rainforest. But so happy to have you all here. Glad you enjoyed your evening last night at STEAM Studio. Welcome to UNC Asheville. For those of you who haven't been here before, please take a moment. We have a beautiful campus. It's filling up with students this year. The camps are coming. Today is the first day of a lot of our residential camps, so there will be a lot of activity on campus. And I will echo, please, if you have a chance to go on the Edible Campus Tour, it is amazing. We are very proud of the biodiversity of our campus, and as are our faculty and staff. And so you'll see an insider's look there. This is an important time to be having our conversations. This is a difficult time for higher education across the country, particularly here in the South. We hope to be able to share, talk, think through, share ideas, work together for our common goals, because now more than ever, we need everyone at the table, we need everyone's voices at the table, and we need to have these discussions robustly, often, and sincerely. So it is, before I go any further, I want to shout out Ellen Pearson, who's been an absolute wonderful resource for this conference. Also Cole, of course, you all know Cole, and Claire, who have been so helpful in organizing this, Laura Lagrone, whom you met there, and Chris, and we've got Kevin today on the camera back there. Thank you all for all of your help. We really appreciate it. I'm just going to get straight to Mary Lynn because you have a treat in store for you. I'm very happy to introduce Mary Lynn Manns, who is a professor emerita at the University of North Carolina at Asheville. She holds a PhD in computer science from De Montfort University in England and was a member of UNC Asheville's faculty for 39 years, first in the computer science department and then in the business department. She's the co-author of two popular books, Fearless Change, Patterns for Introducing New Ideas, 2005, and More Fearless Change, there's a pattern emerging here, Strategies for Making Your Ideas Happen, from 2015. As the Sarah and Joseph Bremen Professor of Social Relations from 2015 to 2017, Dr. Manns established the Ideas to Action Initiative, which taught students how to turn their ideas into opportunities for change. A little hint of things to come. In 2013, Dr. Manns received the Alumni Distinguished Faculty Award. And in her commencement speech that year, and traditionally they give the speech at commencement, she capped off her address about changing the world by changing the world of commencement that day with a little Zumba dancing, in which everyone participated. Everyone, and I've heard the story, Moretta. In addition to teaching many different courses in both computer science and business at UNC Asheville, Dr. Manns has done numerous presentations and workshops at worldwide conferences and at organizations that include Microsoft, Amazon.com, Procter & Gamble, Avon, and Apple. Mary Lynn firmly believes in the power of everyone, including college students and including you, to become leaders of change. So with no further ado, Mary Lynn.
I did that handshake to warm me up. So yeah, there is going to be a little dancing, just a preview of upcoming attractions. Thank you so much for inviting me to come here. I love talking about my favorite topic, which is Ideas to Action, which is the theme of your conference, and which involves change, which is the topic that I've been studying since the 1990s. So today, I'm going to let you get started on some ideas, some of your ideas. So I'm going to act like a teacher for a minute and just make sure everybody has one of these yellow papers and a pen. And I know this looks like you're going to be working, but I promise you it'll be fun. And what my task is to prepare you for your collaboration groups that you're going to get into. So this is something you can start here and then take into hallway talk, talk at your dinner, talk in your collaboration groups. So we're going to start something here today. Okay, you ready? Again, thank you for inviting me. I love talking about ideas to action and change. So thank you for the introduction. Thank you very much for the introduction, but just a little more about who is this person in front of the room. I don't want to talk much about me. This presentation is about you, but just to give you a little understanding of where I'm coming from. So I started the Ideas to Action initiative here at UNCA, and a little bit about that. Of all the things that I did in the 39 years I was here, I so much miss this. I miss my work with this because I've never seen a course where students change so much during the semester. And so they do this because they start working in teams, interdisciplinary teams, you know, the liberal arts way. And they do a pitch right in the beginning, and they write about their idea. And then they get feedback and reflect. And then they pitch again and write again and feedback and reflect. And they pitch again. You get the idea. So they start usually with really bad ideas, and they just keep improving them throughout the semester. And they also work with domain experts. So we have students that work on all kinds of projects. Like I remember the one when the students said they want to work on HVAC. I go, know nothing, I know nothing. So they work with people off campus to help them with their projects. And what's interesting about this is a lot of these people from off campus love the program so much, they donated money to it. So we were able to get scholarships for the students that won the competition at the end of the semester. So we had a competition at the end of the semester and awarded scholarships. So this was a blast. The students there was a massive amount of change in the students during the semester. As I was already mentioned, I've written 2 books, and just to let you know about these books so that you understand where I'm coming from in this presentation, I have a co-author, and we spent years, 10 years to write the first book, 10 years to write the second book, by just interviewing people making change happen. So these are people that were in large organizations, small organizations, for-profit, not-for-profit, very young people, interviewed a few interns, interviewed people in their mid-career, interviewed people from all over the world in a variety of different countries, and we listened to their stories. So you tried to make change happen, or you did make change happen. Tell us your story. And then we pulled out the strategies that they used. And when we heard the strategy over and over again from different kinds of people in different contexts, we put them in the book. So it's a book of strategies, and we named each strategy. Yes, it has some change theory in it, but it's not one of those, and yes, graduate schools do use the book, and undergraduate schools, but it's mostly strategies for making change happen, that a change leader can use to make change happen. And finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about the QEP that I led back in approximately 2008. It was very successful. We rocked it. It came out quite nice. Our feedback was wonderful, but there were some challenges along the way. So I think it's interesting to see the challenges that came along the way in this large change project. So yeah, that's me. But as I said, I promise not to drone on about me. Let's talk about you. So today, we're going to talk about this theme of the conference, Ideas to Action. I love the theme of the program because that gives you the opportunity to work in a comfortable space to actually take some of those things that might be rattling around in your head and work with them. And I'm hopefully going to help you start that this morning. So Ideas to Action involves change. And actually, I'm going through a bit of a change here this morning because I'm being videoed, so I need to stay here, right here, and that's really hard. You're laughing because you're going, oh my gosh, if somebody made me do that. Yeah, I practiced. I practiced staying still. So I have a feeling, as everybody's been teasing me, oh, she's never going to be able to stand still. So I'm going to ask you to help me, that if I move away from the podium, the code word is dance, okay? So let's try that. Dance. Okay, see, that'll work fine. Okay, good, good. All right. So this word, say it again, say it again. So this word change, what does it mean to you? What do you think about when you see that word change? What comes to your mind?
Something different.
Something different? Your university going through some changes right now?
Yes.
Okay, how does it make you feel? Oh God, I sound like a psychologist. How does that make you feel?
Anxious.
Anxious. Okay, keep it up.
Fear.
Fear. Work. Yeah. Stress. What'd you say? Conflict. Possibilities. Oh, somebody said something positive, so you're just going, okay, we're gonna stop that now. So, there's an old adage that people don't like change. What I discovered in those years of interviewing people that were leading change and going through change, I've come to the conclusion it's not the change that people necessarily dislike, it's the process of change. And going through the process of change is full of so many unknowns lurking out there. And we as humans don't like the great unknown. We don't like going into the great unknown. But we know that we need to change. We know that liberal arts universities are facing a lot of stressful situations right now. And you know that you have these huge problems in front of you, but you may not know how to address them. But you know they're there. So let's start working on that this morning. Let's start working on some of the things that you have at the top of mind. All right? Now, I know what you're thinking, oh no, work. No, I promise this will be fun. Let's work with those ideas and stresses and conflicts that are hanging around in your head. Moving from ideas to action, these are two of my favorite quotes. What you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference you want to make. We all know who Jane Goodall is. And David Lamont is one of my favorite singer-songwriters. He's in the Black Mountain area nearby. I recommend you check him out if you don't know his music. You are changing the world whether you like it or not, so which changes will you make? I love those because that concentrates on you. What are you doing? More importantly, what can you do? And what can't you do? I'm going to think about that this morning. So we're going to be talking about, in this particular 50 minutes that we have together, we're going to be talking about ideas. We're not going to be talking about the action part. That's another presentation I could do. But we're just talking about how to get those ideas generated. All right? And we're going to help you focus. So I'm guessing that you have a lot of challenges that just keep bugging you, just keep rattling in your head, and you have some ideas, and you're just like, okay, I just need to focus, but I never seem to have time to focus. So that's what we're going to try to do today. You're really interesting people, and you probably have a lot going on. So let's take some time to look at what can you possibly do to address some of those challenges you're facing as a liberal arts institution. And you can use this in your collaboration groups this afternoon. So you ready to get started? Ready? Sure. Yeah. Let's hear it. Yeah. Okay. Let's do this. All right, moving from ideas to action. As I said, that's the theme of this meeting. I'm going to suggest, okay, be ready for it, that you act more like a college student. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, those of you that are giggling like, what? That would be bedlam, right? If we went around acting like college students. But stick with me here. What I've observed is that college students get things done when moving from ideas to action because they don't necessarily act like us. They do things we don't do. And some of the things I'm going to show you are from my perspective of being a professor and a department chair for a while. But, and they may not apply and you may not agree with what you see at your university. And also, some of the things I'm going to say apply to traditional age college students. But I think we have something to learn here. 4 things. First of all, they tend to focus on themselves. Yeah, okay. A little self-absorbed, a little self-centered. They're learning about themselves. They're young. They tend to be idealistic, right? Especially if they're traditional age, they don't have a lot of life experience and they're not exactly realistic about what they can do. And so they tend not to be very realistic and on the border of idealistic. When it comes to changing the world, moving from ideas to action, these 2 things are a good thing. Focusing on yourself and being idealistic. I'll convince you of that. They move without planning. Yeah, they do a lot of that. They kind of go, okay, let's forge ahead. It turns out to be a good thing when you're moving from ideas to action. And they're willing to step out of their comfort zone. And I hope you are today too. So the title of this presentation is Moving from Ideas to Action, What If? So what if you act at least some of the time like a college student? Kind of make you get a little, whoa, what's she saying? Or are you thinking back to when you were a college student? So I ask you, were you a little self-absorbed, a little self-centered? Okay. Did you dream big? You weren't entirely realistic? Did you forge ahead a lot without a plan? Let's do that, right? And were you willing to step out of your comfort zone a lot? Well, we're going to talk about each of these individually, and maybe I'll put you into the head of a college student, because that was a while ago, right? I know you're looking at me like, where is she going with this? Who hired this woman? So hang in here with me. You'll see. So the first one, begin by focusing on yourself. So this is what college students tend to do, and it can bug us. But I've noticed that when moving from ideas to action, this is a good thing. And notice I didn't say completely focus on yourself, because let's be realistic. We're talking about making change in the world. We don't want to focus on ourselves the whole time. This is a begin by focusing on yourself. When we did the interviews for Fearless Change, and now that I do presentations on Fearless Change, people will often say to me, oh, there's all these strategies you have in the book. Where do I start? And I say, start with the know yourself pattern. Begin by knowing yourself before you go out there and try to change the world. So we're going to do some of that this morning. We ask students to be reflective all the time in class and in papers. And I did the internship program for a long time, and I just loved reading about the reflections that they had out in the real world. So, but now we're older and we're busier. And I ask you, how often do you sit down and think about what you can do based on your talents and your strengths, what you could do to change the world? Do you really sit down and think about that? Do you get time to sit down and think, what can I do based on my talents and strengths to change the world, to make change at the issues you're facing at your university, the challenges? Okay, so I'm going to look to students for this. How can we do this? Well, on the first day of the Ideas to Action class, the first day when they come in, I say to them, so, before they even know me, what makes you angry? You should see their eyes pop out of their heads, like, what? What did she say? And I ask them to write about it, and then we talk about it. I don't use the word passion, because the word passion is kind of fuzzy. If I said passion, we'd all think of something different. And I know this is controversial and probably a little edgy. When they asked me to speak, I said, my presentations are usually edgy. And this is probably a little uncomfortable to some of you. But let's be honest. All of us are angry about something. And if we hold it deep down, it'll sometimes rebound at inappropriate times. And I think of John Lewis, who said, you know, good trouble. Well, maybe there's such a thing as good anger. In fact, I just heard about a book called Good and Mad, How Women's Anger is Changing or Reshaping America. I also just heard a term last night, constructive anger. I said, ooh, got to remember that. I think it's a gift we give to students and we give to everybody, as I'm going to give to you here, to say it's okay to be angry about something and to use it and to grow from it and to make change. Now, students get excited when I say this in class. They get the opportunity to work on something that annoys them, and it keeps them rocking and rolling throughout the whole semester. Although, let me be clear, we just use the word anger the first, second day of class, and then I don't mention that word again. I don't want to keep them in the negative space, in the problem space. So I'll give you some examples. There was one team who was started by a student who was an engineering student, and he was very angry that in middle school, he had to sit with earphones on because during quiet time, like reading time and things like that, because he was so easily distracted. He had a problem with being easily distracted. Could you imagine how embarrassing that was in middle school to be sitting there with those earphones on? He was still angry about that in college. So he asked a friend that was in the management department to work with him. And throughout the semester, through the process of pitching and writing and continuous improvement and working with domain experts, they designed 12 by 12 sound panels that they could put up on rooms, and they taped up and they could bring them back down to bring down the sound in the rooms. So you could use these in classrooms, in your dorm room, and you could put them up and take them down. And they, by the way, then after they won the competition here on campus, they went to the STEAM studio that you saw last night and built them. So these students, I keep in touch with them, and they're out there getting married, trying to make some money, but they still have those panels. One of them has the panels behind his sofa, hoping to do something with them someday. Another student, you'll like this one. Another student, it was a drama student. Remember I said Ideas to Action was a very interdisciplinary class. It was a drama student, and she was very angry when she went into a room and the air conditioning was too cold. And she said, look at all this energy we're wasting. So she teamed up with an environmental studies student, and they developed this app that you could use in a conference where you could give your feedback on how you felt in the room, and the app took the average of everybody's feedback and adjusted the HVAC. So these started with being angry about something. As for me, here's what I'm angry about. I mean, I guess I'm angry like you about a lot of things, but what I'm most angry about is the political divide and the meanness that has created. In my opinion, we can't get anything else done if we keep having this political divide. And you might be able to relate to some of that at your universities too, and at your struggle with liberal arts education. It's almost like it's the people that are educated and the people who aren't. So these divides and the meanness that seems to be coming out of it, the inability to just talk and say, okay, we disagree, let's talk about it, seems to have left somewhere. And this is everywhere from the dining room table to Congress. So I won't get on that soapbox, but that's what I'm most angry about. So I ask you to think about what you're most, I bet you already know, what you're most angry. It's at the top of your mind. I ask you to draw a circle on your yellow page, a circle that's just about 4 inches in diameter. 4 inches, a small one, because you're going to need some room here. Draw a circle, about 4 inches in diameter, not too big. And put right in there what you're angry about. This is a picture from the Grove Park Inn Gingerbread House annual competition. I thought that's actually made out of cake, And I thought that guy looked angry, so there's the picture. So what are you most angry about? I bet it's at the top of your mind. Don't think deep thoughts. There's probably a lot you're angry about. Just put something in there. First thing that comes to mind would be good. Love it that you're all writing away. By the way, you can use this in your research too. My research on change started because I was just angry about some situations that I saw where people weren't willing to change with new technology. And that just started me rocking and rolling with 30 years of research. All right, so everybody's got that? What makes you angry? Well, let's not concentrate on that anger. So in my opinion, to get something done, you need an equal part anger and equal part love. So let's talk about what you love about yourself. I know this sounds a little tacky. What do I love about myself? So again, I go to the students for advice. And have you ever watched students work in teams? So in the Ideas to Action class, they get put in interdisciplinary teams, they select their teams, and you watch them, immediately they start saying, okay, you do this and you do that, and I'll do this and I'll do that, and we do this. And do you ever watch how they work? You know, right away they know what they're good at. And they say, okay, I'm not good at that, you do that. And although we can think that's a little controversial, you know, they should be learning everything, they know we got to get something done. And when it comes to moving from ideas to action, that's a good thing. Work with your strengths. Work with your strengths. Because compare that to us. Us. We are professionals. We are smart. We're overachievers. And we're asked to do a lot. And we just say, sure, we can do that, right? Yeah, we can do that. Which is fine. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for the hard work you're doing and that you do say yes to so much. But when it comes to moving from ideas to action, I'd like to propose that you think differently, that you think about your strengths and use those. When I accepted the position to lead the QEP, I was like, sure, I can do that. And within 48 hours, I went, oh my gosh. But that was appropriate for me to say yes and build a team of people and work with my strengths and then get help from other people. So, again, I'm thankful for all you do, all the variety of things you do. But right now, I'd like you to focus on yourself. That little blue person there. What do you love about yourself? What is your strength? What is your talent? What is your superpower? And I love that so many people immediately went down to write. Yes, you probably have a lot. I ask you to draw a little person, draw you, draw yourself, draw a box, and write a superpower in there. Some of you might remember the days over Zoom when, you know, those boring meetings would start with, and so everybody talk about your superpower. Were you on those kind of meetings? I was. Wow, that was easy. Okay, so you looked at your anger and you looked at what you love about yourself. That's what you have in this cute little picture. We're going to actually do something with this. So remember, the title of this presentation is Moving from Ideas to Action, What If? So I ask you, what could you do if you started by focusing on you? That was the first thing. Students are very self-absorbed, focusing on themselves. I ask you to do that. With students, what happens is it sparks their fire. When we do this little exercise, they go, wait, here's something I'm angry about. I feel it. Here's something I love about myself. I feel it. And they feel these two things, and they start thinking, wait, I can do something. I can actually move. When I was doing the interviews in Fearless Change, it was interesting. I talked to some people who said, okay, I was working on making this change, and I did this, and I did that, and I did this, and I did that. And I remember one particular interview where Linda, my co-author, and I were sitting there, and the guy walked out of the room, and Linda turned to me and said, at any moment, I felt like we were going to break into it to dream the impossible dream. You know that song? Because it was like, I did this and I did that. Like he was capable of doing everything. And needless to say, the end of his story was, it failed. I need your help, So he never looked at his strengths to spark it and then get people to help. Look at your strengths to spark it. So why do I have you do this today? Well, I want you to think about your talents and interests to spark this. You see problems, you want to make them happen, but you're thinking, oh my gosh, it's too big. There'd be too many things to do. And we tend to get paralyzed, right? Yeah, I'm seeing nods. Or we say, yeah, sure, we could do this, and then I can do it all, and you know how that ends, right? So hopefully, just like the students, you feel a little sparked. You feel a little sparked? Feel a little sparked? It's hard to be sparked at 9:30 in the morning, but hopefully you feel a little sparked. Okay, so that was the first lesson. Let's look at the rest of the lessons that I've learned from students. Moving from ideas to action. Be more idealistic. So students dream big. That's a good thing. Traditional age students, they don't have the life experiences, so they're often not realistic. When it comes to moving from ideas to action, that's a good thing. They're idealistic. I'm going to argue that you could be a little more idealistic. So have you ever seen students in class just jump to conclusions? They go, well, we just need to do this, and this will happen. And it's like, I would sit there and I would go, oh my gosh, here's all the reasons. I'm in my head, I'm thinking, here's all the reasons that won't work. I used to think that was my job, to help them be less idealistic. And then I learned in the moving from ideas to action that was a good thing. It got them moving, and it kept them moving. Sure, we can do this. Yeah, let's do this. It was really fun to watch. Let's compare this to us, and I include myself in all this, us. We're sensible, we're pragmatic, we're realistic, and we're highly analytical. So we're taught to be highly analytical. But when moving from ideas to action, sometimes that analysis freezes us. So I remember when we were working on the QEP in the early days, and we went down to Atlanta to talk with a meeting with the SACS people, and I remember just sitting there during that SACS meeting and not blinking the whole time. It's like, what's going on here? Drive home from Atlanta to Asheville in the car, and I was like, I'm not talking. I don't know. I can't believe it. And I remember when we parked in UNC Asheville, and one of the administrators got out of the car, and he went, okay, let's do this. And he was normally kind of a stuffy guy. And I went, yeah, let's do this. And I realized that was a moment of idealism. And throughout, when I would go, we can't do this, I would think of that guy getting out of the car and going, let's do this. So in Fearless Change, when I was interviewing people, they would start their stories, and I'd be like, what were you thinking? But I didn't say that. It's like, where's this story going to go? They all started out idealistic. Okay, we could do this. One particular student team that stands out in my mind is a student team that, in Ideas to Action, that was really angry about sexual assault. And the woman, I don't know her background and what caused her to be so angry, but she had a wonderful boyfriend at the time from the Department of Management, and they worked together. And they started with the idea they were going to create newsletters about sexual assault And how are you going to fund this? Oh, people are going to buy it. People are going to read newsletters about sexual assault. That's fun. And then they realized through just getting feedback and pitching and writing, wait, that won't work. Tried another idea, wait, that won't work. Tried another idea, wait, that won't work. But their idealism in we can do this, we can figure this out, kept them going. Guess what? Their idea, which was they did a prototype for a wristband that you could wear when you were going out, and if you were assaulted, you could hit it, and it tied into the university system, which would then bring the campus police to your position because it had a GPS in it. So they won the competition on campus, and then we went to the state competition, and they won that. And this all started with a really bad idea about the newsletters, but their idealism kept them going. So I believe that even when you start with a bad idea, and that's what you have to do is start, there's a nugget of value in it. There's some nugget of value in it. And students, they have the perfect storm of idealism, and they're willing to live with messy ideas. They're okay with that. They're not as over-analytical as we are. They can live with messy ideas. So I ask you, what could you do if you're willing to be a bit more idealistic and work with messy thoughts? Notice I said a bit. I'm not saying you turn into this idealistic person that runs around campus going, oh, we can do this, So a little more idealistic. When was the last time you weren't realistic and practical? Today. What if you're less analytical? What if you approach ideas being less analytical? Yes, we need to do risk analysis, right? What if you enjoyed living with messy thoughts? Actually enjoyed that process. What could you accomplish? I can tell you that with students, what happens is it gives them the green light, keeps them going, right? They're just, yeah, we can do this. So first you focused on yourself. You looked at what makes you angry and where your talents and strengths lie. If you're willing to be a little more idealistic, just a little more, let's talk about the third thing, which is, what do you do now? What do you do now? Moving from ideas to action. Remember the third thing? Begin to take action. Remember, students do not plan well without a specific plan. Begin to take action without a specific plan. I know I can see some of you twitching, like, what? What? Now, I'm not saying you throw away your planning. My gosh, I worked on enough strategic plans and other things at the university that I know the value of planning. But I'm just saying that when you're moving from a messy idea to hopefully action, you think about something that's more of an outline rather than a specific plan. So I'm going to tell you the story of this bridge. This bridge is near Vancouver, Canada. It's a 450-foot swinging bridge. And I went with some friends, and I said, I'm not crossing that bridge. I want y'all to know that. And I went into the gift store. But then I don't really like gift stores. So I came out and I said, I might never be here again. And I'm crossing this bridge. So I did some risk analysis. It's not like I was totally idealistic. Yes, I can do I can skip over it, or they're called somersaults over it, right? I can do that. Now, I wasn't totally idealistic. I did some risk analysis, and I did a little bit of planning. Okay, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna wait till those people get out of the way. And what I did was, I had an evolving vision. Okay, I'm just gonna get out on the bridge so that I can tell people I was on the bridge, right? So I'm just gonna get out there. That was my first vision. I'm just gonna get out on the bridge, all right? So then I took a step, and then I reflected. So I took a step and then went, wait, whoa. Should I go back? Should I go forward? What Then I took another step. Oh, and there'd like be somebody in front of me. I go, oh gosh, didn't think that kid was going to come in front of me. The kid doesn't know what's going on. So it's like walk around the kid, take another step, reflect. And you get it, step. And each time I kept figuring out what my new vision was. Was I going to go to the center and turn back? Was I going to make it to the other side? I didn't know. I was just taking steps. And yes, I made it the whole way across, much to the surprise of the people on the other side. And then I said, oh my gosh, I got to go back. I got to go back. But what I did, I'm not saying that what you might do at your universities to make change happen is as simple as crossing a 450-foot swinging bridge. But this is the idea of just building on your successes and learning from your failures. So when I took a step and the bridge moved a little too much, I went, no, move back. So here's another story, so you get the idea of what I'm talking about here. Stepping with an evolving vision. So like I said, I'm really angry about the political divide and the meanness that's created, and just the division in general that I see around me with two separate kinds of rival groups. So I thought about what's my superpower. And I really believe my superpower is my even temperness. Evenly tempered. What is that? Temperness. Yeah. I don't lose my temper. Rarely do I lose my temper. Back when my daughter was 16 years old and she was playing as a pitcher on the softball game tournament, and there's lightning everywhere and they wouldn't call the game, I lost my temper and ran out on the field and said, call the game. So it's not like I don't ever lose my temper, but I rarely do. And it served me well, both politically, professionally, and in my personal life. And I know that sounds weird, but that's what I decided was my superpower. Now, it isn't that I don't get angry, because I do. But my superpower, I thought, how can I use that? And I thought, well, wait. I really am angry that people can't talk. What if I start talking to people who think differently than I do politically, and just start talking to them? I probably will not lose my temper, no matter what they say. I'll feel angry, but I probably won't explode, because we know that'll get us nowhere. So why don't I just do that? So I took a step, and my first step was to talk to the first person. And it was a little awkward. I was scared. I was a little scared. And I used a technique called peel the onion, where you ask a question and then they say something, you ask a question based on that. And I wasn't there to tell them why I felt they were wrong, because that gets you nowhere. There's something called the backfire effect, where people just dig their heels in deeper. And I wasn't there I was watching their emotions, so I wasn't there to give them more facts, because when we have people that are working with the emotional side of change and we just give them more facts, that doesn't change their opinion. We need to work with their emotions. Change is very emotional. So I recognize all that from my work, my 20 plus years of work in change. So I just listened. And I used every opportunity. This was not a structured research study where I used any kind of specific methodology. All I did was I took the opportunity. When I found somebody and I felt it was a safe space, I started the conversation, was careful during the whole thing, and stopped if I felt it wasn't, if people were getting too emotional and it was time to stop. I didn't tell them much about the way I felt, although they probably knew. Some of them did know. And then during this process, I was listening to NPR, and I heard this program they were starting called One Small Step. And they were looking for people on both sides, both Republicans and Democrats, to talk to each other on the air, with a producer there, with ground rules. And I thought, I'm going to apply for that. So I got online and I applied for it, and guess what? They chose 50 people to do 25 interviews, and I was one of them. And so I was on NPR with an NPR producer talking to a person who was thought differently than I do politically. You know, she was staring at us the whole time to make sure we didn't get into an argument, but we didn't. It was delightful. Although I will say the interview started and he started talking, the person that thinks different than me politically, and I went, oh my gosh, I got 54 minutes left. Oh my gosh. But you know, then we just started talking and getting to know each other, and we later met in person, because this was done over Zoom. We later met in person and continued the conversation. And we still keep in touch, and we're going to meet again. And so this was the kind of unstructured thing I did. The point in all this is, I just took a step. I don't know where this is going to go. But here are some random things I've learned. There's no bullet points here because this is not a research presentation. Here's some random things I've learned. I've learned that you've got to be curious. You've got to enter conversations with people that you have conflict with curiosity. You've got to be curious. And not that you want to bring them to your side, you just want to learn. You got to listen to their stories. I learned a lot about immigration, gun control, and opinions on education, too, from just listening to people's stories, where they came from, how they developed their opinions. Most of all, it tells me why. I'm a big why person. I must have been a really annoying 2-year-old, because still to this day, why? Why did that happen? This gives me a why. Why do they feel the way they feel? It breaks down stereotypes. It turns out there's something called contact hypothesis that I later learned when I worked with NPR. They said, oh, what we're doing here is a contact hypothesis, which says in a structured environment, if you have the right kind of conversations between people, it'll break down stereotypes, discrimination, all these different things that, like prejudice, and you just want to go, well, duh. So there's actually some research about this. I also saw that it broke down some suspicions that I had. It seems like the media is constantly making it sound like we're out to get each other. That's not my experience at all from these conversations. It's just like, I believe the way I believe, you believe the way you believe. And I'm sure there's some of that out there, people that are out to get other people. We know that. But, you know, I'm not finding that in my average discussions, just saying. It's challenging at times. It's challenging at times because I listen. I remember at the end of one conversation, somebody said to me, well, because I didn't talk much during the conversation, they said, well, you should read more. That was about the time that I almost lost my temper. You know, I was like, oh yeah, I'll go out and I'll read more. Okay. You know, it was also challenging when I'm talking with others. Sometimes people that are around me don't feel comfortable with that. Like, what are you doing? So I get this. The knee knock. Dance. Oh, yeah, dance. But you know the knee knock, right? Yeah, that's good. We sound very good. So I get the knee knock, like, don't do that. What are you doing here? All right? So this isn't always comfortable to do. It's interesting. Oh my gosh, there's so many things I can tell you that I learned. One of the more interesting things right now that's at the top of my mind is this thing of values. Later on, when we debriefed on the NPR interview, the guy that was with me said, they asked him, what really struck you about the interview? And he said, oh, it was so amazing that we have similar values. And I thought to myself, I didn't see it that way at all. And then somebody asked, well, if you have similar values, because they were talking to him, then why can't you agree politically? And I jumped in and said, well, I think because we don't agree on how we can implement those values, how we can make those values realized. And so anyway, there's just a lot of things that deep thinking that I do. I could go on and on about all the things I've learned, but time is ticking away. But I will say it's very cathartic. I spend time with these people, and I come away feeling much better than when I hang with people who believe the same as I do politically, and we have some kind of complaint session. It's very cathartic to just talk with them. Now, this being said, there have been some that I had to just walk away from. It got too heated, and you have to just watch the situation. I think when it really works is somehow we develop a trust and a willingness to learn, even though I usually don't talk much. Sometimes I'll say, oh, I agree. Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I don't try to persuade them to my side. But I think that people enter the conversations because they're willing to learn about this person, or they're willing to learn about themselves. And there might be some trust in there. So if you intend to do this, I'd look for those kind of situations. What's interesting is the problem solving in it. I can tell you about one particular situation where I sat there with two women over a bottle of wine, and we started talking about immigration. And, oh, well, what do you think we should do? What do you think we should do? By the time we were done talking and the bottle of wine was gone, we realized, oh, we had this great idea that we could send to Congress. They got a little bit and I got a little bit, and we were going to send it to Congress. Of course, the next morning when the wine wore off, we realized, no, it wasn't good enough to send to Congress. But that's not the point. Two people that disagree, three people, we vehemently disagreed. We put together a rough idea with some messy thoughts. And it's fun. It's really been fun. I'm going to continue it. It's changing me. It's truly changing me. I'm learning. I don't know where this will go. I'm just going to keep on learning. But here's what Amanda Gorman said, poet Amanda Gorman said, in The Hill We Climb. We close the divide because to put our future first, we must put our differences aside. Now, I don't think that I'm going to close the divide with my conversations, but it's changing me. I'm talking with my friends about it. And eventually I'll probably talk with even more people about it. And so I'm doing my little part. So you know where we're going with this. What is your little part that you can do? What if you begin by taking a step without a specific plan? That's what I did in the bridge, and that's what I'm doing with this little conversations that I'm having with people who think differently than I do. So I'm guessing what you have in that anger thing is really big. It's really big and it's complicated. Can you take a step without overanalyzing it? Be a little idealistic. What is your first step? So I invite you to draw a little square and think about your first step. And this is a little harder. You can think about this through the conference. You can think about this with other people. Hopefully you're getting fired up, though. Okay, the last of the four. This is the last of the four. Moving from ideas to action, you have to step out of your comfort zone. That thing that you wrote in the step, I'll bet you that's going to take you out of your comfort zone. Right? It's going to take you out of your comfort zone to do it. Certainly when I had the first conversation, it did. So we ask students to do this all the time. They come into new classes, they start on new projects, they have a new teacher. We ask them to step out of their comfort zone all the time, and they do it. In Ideas to Action, I'm going to tell you about one particular student. Her name was Anna, who was angry that diapers can be composted, but tampons cannot. So remember I said they pitch a lot, and they pitch again, and they pitch again. And one of the first pitches she did was to a group at the Osher Lifelong Learning Center. And most of the people that showed up that day were men, and they were in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And here's Anna up there talking about tampons. And she did. And it was a rough idea at that point. It was the beginning of the semester. It was one of their first pitches. They did many pitches throughout the semester. And she walked over to me and she said, Dr. Manns, if I can talk to a bunch of old guys, sorry, that's the word she used, old guys about having my period, I can do anything. So there you go. So I'm asking you, are you willing to step out of your comfort zone? And you're going, oh my God, what is she going to have us do? Are you willing to step out of your comfort zone? Say yes. Yes, okay, good. I know you don't, most of you don't know me, so you're probably going, oh my gosh, what's she going to ask us to do? Okay, so let's find out. What could you do if you're willing to leave your comfort zone and take a step? Take that step that you wrote, right? Well, first, we're sitting here comfortably, right? We're very comfortable, very comfortable. So why don't we stand? Please, I invite you to stand if you are able. So, good, thank you, thank you. A little less comfortable. How about if we take a step? So take a step. Okay. Invite you to take another step. Oh, what are you supposed to say? Dance. I think that's a grand idea. Let's do it. Good for you. Give yourself a round of applause. You may sit down. So dancing uses a different part of your brain. Dancing uses a different part of your brain. Whoa, sorry. Thank you. Dancing uses a different part of your brain. Thank you very much. She told me to move back. And I have students dance before exams, and 98% of the students do it. They get up there and they dance before an exam so that they can start activating different parts of their brain. So if you are uncomfortable doing that in front of people, I suggest maybe you just do it in your house by yourself, because I do it every morning, dance around my house. And here's all the things dancing can help with. Step out of your comfort zone. That was the fourth thing, and you did it, even though some of you were looking like, when is this going to be over? Just to get serious for a minute here. Today's problems are complex. Nobody expects you to solve them completely. The problems you're facing at your liberal arts universities are complex. You're going to get a chance over the next couple days to start discussing those. Hopefully the paper you have in front of you will start prompting some discussions. Today you took a step. And you've heard the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. So because we're all academics, let's review. What would happen if you spark your fire by focusing on you? Okay, you did that. What are you angry about? What do you love about yourself? Call that why. You are willing to be just a little more idealistic. Okay? I know you have very important things you need to do, but just a little more idealistic sometimes. Call that I. You begin with a step. Instead of overanalyzing, a little risk analysis is good, an outline is good, but a specific plan may just paralyze you and will likely blow up, because guess what? Change involves people, and people are unpredictable. Change involves people, and people are unpredictable. So that's often why your plans don't go well. You continue stepping out of your comfort zone. So a little more metaphorically speaking, dancing. It doesn't necessarily have to be dancing, but more stepping out of your comfort zone. Now, I tried really hard to get an acronym for this. So if you want to try to remember to go around YISK, I really tried hard. I spent way too much time on this. So I don't think you're going to remember YISK. Maybe you will. But what you need to remember is act like a college student. Think about those students, those delightful, beautiful human beings that are all around you. And the things that they do, because when they're moving from ideas to action, they don't necessarily act like us. They're these things. So for now, I gave you this advice, and you might think, I'm totally wackadoodle. That woman is wackadoodle. But what if? What if I'm not? Thank you very much for coming today. And I always end with, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. Wayne Gretzky. And here's a little bit about me. I know that we started late, so I don't know if we have time for questions, or I'll leave that up to you, Ellen.
About 7 minutes.
7 minutes for questions. Any questions?
I got it.
Yes, good. We love questions. Oh, sorry.
I spend my time implementing other people's ideas. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so that's,
my comfort zone.
what did you say?
That's my comfort zone.
Okay, so he says he spends a lot of time implementing other people's ideas. That's his comfort zone. And so I'm willing to believe that you have ideas when you look around and say, this needs to be fixed. This needs to change. And so that's really what we were concentrating on today, to get you to start to believe that there's something out there that you can prompt, you can start. So even if your job is to implement other people's ideas, I encourage you to, maybe it requires stepping out of your comfort zone, being a little more idealistic and going, what I wrote down is what I'm angry about, and that really needs to change. How can I do it? And so we can talk. I'll be here for a while, and I can tell you more about what I talk to people about in making that happen. And I'll be glad to talk to you more about that. But I'll answer that by just saying, look at what you wrote down, think about what you see around you that's really bugging you, and what you would like to change. Yes, hi.
I appreciate the admonishment to be idealistic. One of the things though that I would like for address that why we are not idealistic. And I'm going with, there's a cost as someone who is idealistic and someone who constantly steps out of the comfort zone. There's a price, and there's always a price, and most of us know what that price is. And sometimes I would like for us to be willing to acknowledge that at times we beat the idealism out of each other.
Exactly.
And then like when we see the anger, we get so afraid of that anger till we don't understand the person, and we sterilize and demonize people who do express anger. And we've always known that anger is usually initiative, and anger is that thing that it seems from practice gets stuff done on that. So, I mean, some of us in this room are in positions to take away that maybe we should not be so quick to dismiss the idealism that's coming from ourselves.
Thank you for that. And she wasn't on mic, so I don't know how much you heard, but basically I'm going to summarize it hopefully well. There's a price for being angry and idealistic, and we sometimes beat it out of each other. We beat the idealism out of each other. You know, I had part of this presentation because I knew there were a lot of administrators here. With a part of it was, what are you doing at your campus to support this? And I realized I was going to be out of time. I wasn't going to have enough time to do that part. So with that, marvelous observation. I would ask you, what are you doing at your campuses to support people who want to be a little more idealistic, who want to step out of their comfort zone and do something? I will tell you one thing, that when I was putting this together and I was reflecting on my own career, the best things that I did in my career were because I was idealistic. I wasn't as analytical as I probably normally am. But there probably wasn't anybody around to beat it out of me at that time. So that is a good observation. So I ask you, what are you doing at your campuses to support this? I don't have the answer to that, but thank you for bringing that up. Really, thank you. Hi, Sally, yeah. She said, I miss you, Mary Lynn.
What is your advice in balancing, because I'll say that my superpowers I wrote down, and this is going to make my provost laugh, are organized and detail-oriented. That balancing the vision, right, and the initiative with the planning that's necessary to get to the end. And so I know, like, this was super inspiring about, like, let's get started, but what are your thoughts about what happens next?
Yes, and so this is an hour presentation, so I didn't have time to talk about that, but that's what Fearless Change is all about, is, okay, you have the idea and you're ready to take action, now what do you do? And so there's just a whole collection of strategies, and what you do is, it's pretty much that back to the bridge example. You use one of the strategies in there, you reflect on it, what worked, what didn't work, and then you try another, what worked and what didn't work. Remember, change is hard because, I say it again, because it involves people, and people are not predictable. So you can't, that's one of the reasons a lot of your plans don't work. So, but trying something, a strategy that you know has worked for other people, and then reflecting on it, and then you try another and reflect on it. But I'm not poo-pooing plans. You need a general outline. When we did the QEP, I'll never forget, we had this gorgeous plan. I was very, very proud of it. And then it blew up soon after we started because I didn't realize this was, I realized it was 2008, 2009, and a lot of people were having money pulled away from them. And here I was coming along, and we're putting money into this QEP. Well, people were angry, and they were not supportive of the QEP. Good people that I thought would be. And I understand that now. It's like, why did I think of that? So there was a lot of things standing in our way that I didn't expect. So that's all you can do, is try a strategy, reflect on it, try another strategy, reflect on it. And sometimes you could have a plan for a short period of time. We call that time boxing. You have a plan for a short period of time rather than this whole big plan for change, that's specific on exactly what we will do. So again, I say, talk to me. I'll get you a copy of one of my books, and we can talk about what to do. Okay, and now we're out of time. So I will be around. Thank you very much for allowing me to come talk about my favorite topic, and thank you for dancing. Really, have a great meeting.